All right, today we're going to break down a really complex legal battle. And what's wild is that this entire story is drawn from just one person's sworn court filings. We're going to explore the claims, the evidence, and the serious allegations that, according to these documents, tie a child support case to a pretty devastating human crisis. So, where does this story even begin? Well, according to these legal documents, it starts with a single, really stark number: 527. That's how many days the petitioner claims he was homeless, and he argues it was a direct result of actions taken by state child support agencies. Right off the bat, you can see the stakes here are incredibly high. And that's the big question, right? How could a system that's literally designed to support families allegedly cause such a catastrophic outcome? The court filings lay out a very specific, multi-layered answer, and we're going to walk through it step by step. So first up, let's look at the connection the filings draw between the debt itself and the alleged outcome of homelessness. We're going to trace the events exactly as they are described in these legal motions. From there, we're going to dig into what the petitioner calls the immediate trigger for this whole crisis, what he claims was a major violation of his due process rights. Let's take a look at the timeline he presents in the filing. Okay, so the filing really zeroes in on this sequence of events. In May of 2023, the petitioner says he sent a written warning to the Larimer County Child Support Agency. He told them his unemployment was gone and he was about to be evicted. Just 2 months later, the agency's response was to suspend his driver's license. Now, the motion argues this made it impossible for him to work, and that is what directly caused his homelessness. And this quote? This is presented as a perfect example of the petitioner's frustration. It's the alleged email response he got after telling the agency about his desperate financial situation. In his affidavit, he basically frames this as him pleading for help and just getting hit with a bureaucratic brick wall, pushing the problem to a court system he couldn't even afford to access. And here's the absolute heart of the matter. The filings argue that suspending someone's license after you've been warned they're broke and without a proper hearing to see if they can even pay isn't just a harsh move, it's unconstitutional. He flat out calls it punishment for poverty, a direct violation of his due process rights, which are supposed to guarantee fair treatment under the law. But wait, it gets even more tangled. The petitioner argues this didn't just happen in a vacuum. He claims it was all part of a confusing, and he says illegal, enforcement scheme between 2 different states, Colorado and South Dakota. Now, to really get what's coming next, you gotta know about this law called UISFA. It's a federal act that's basically designed to prevent total chaos in these situations by creating a one-order system. The whole point is to make sure only one state is in charge of a case at any given time. Okay, so with that in mind, the filings start throwing out a series of contradictory quotes to show this alleged chaos. First, in early 2025, a Colorado technician is quoted as telling the petitioner, "Look, South Dakota is running the show here." But then, the document shows her own supervisor jumping in, calling that misinformation, and saying, "No, actually, the order is from Colorado, so we have jurisdiction." The petitioner uses this to show that even within the same agency, nobody seemed to know who was in charge. And to complete what he calls the circle of confusion, a South Dakota official is then quoted as claiming her agency has no jurisdiction at all. But the filings allege her office was still sending enforcement requests to Colorado. So the motion asks, who exactly is steering the ship? The petitioner holds this up as his smoking gun. 2 quotes that he argues show officials from both states admitting, in writing, to some kind of informal, off-the-books enforcement scheme. From his point of view, this is evidence of an illegal end run around federal law. So we've seen the alleged outcome and the jurisdictional mess. But the petitioner's motion goes even deeper than that, arguing that the entire debt being enforced was, in his own words, a fictitious debt from the very, very beginning. He calls this the original sin of the case. Here's the core of that allegation. According to the filings, the 2015 parenting plan laid out shared custody. Under Colorado law, that means they legally had to use something called Worksheet B for the calculation. Instead, the petitioner claims the state used Worksheet A, which is for sole custody, creating what he calls an invalid and inflated debt right from day one. And this is presented as a crucial piece of evidence. The petitioner includes this quote from an internal agency email, arguing it proves the agency knew about the discrepancy. The document highlights that a county official actually noted the parenting plan looked like shared custody, yet the filings claim enforcement just kept on going based on the wrong calculation.
Okay, but here's where the story takes another huge turn. The petitioner argues that even if you completely ignore the alleged calculation error, the debt was legally wiped out anyway, and he presents two key pieces of evidence for this claim. First, he points to the money. He pulls out the state's own accounting ledgers, which he includes in the filing, and they apparently show a credit balance of over $35,000. He argues this is direct proof that any legitimate debt had not only been paid, but significantly overpaid. And the second piece of evidence he puts forward is a legal waiver. The filings include this quote from an email allegedly sent by the respondent, who is the child's mother, explicitly stating she has waived all back child support. According to the petitioner's legal argument, this would extinguish any remaining debt obligation, period. So this all leads to the million-dollar question at the heart of his case. If the state's own records showed a credit, and the person receiving the money had legally waived the debt, why in the world did state agencies allegedly keep enforcing it for years, leading to the devastating consequences he describes? And that brings us right up to today, to our final section. After years of what he describes as fighting this bureaucratic nightmare, the petitioner has filed these motions, and he's asking the court for some pretty comprehensive relief. So, what does he want the court to do about all this? Well, his list of demands is pretty extensive. The filings show he's asking the court to 1. Declare the original support orders were void from the very start. 2. Issue an emergency injunction to permanently stop all enforcement. 3. Order a full forensic audit of the account using the correct worksheet this time. And finally, 4. To order the full restitution of over $116,000 he claims was unlawfully taken. And just to be clear, this isn't just a story or a hypothetical. It's happening. This right here is the official court confirmation that the motions we've been talking about were formally filed and accepted on September 29, 2025. This entire collection of allegations is now officially before a judge awaiting a response.
So we end by coming back to the huge conflict presented in these documents. The petitioner's filings force us to ask a really profound question. What happens when the very systems designed to be a safety net for families are accused not just of failing, but of actively creating a human crisis? The answer to that question will now be decided in a Colorado courtroom.